Hello and good evening. My name is Alexis Wetzel, and this is my third oral presentation on literary criticism. And today I will be covering literary criticism in criminal investigation. So, to give a recap on what literary criticism is the interpretation, analysis, and evaluation of literary works. Literary criticism utilizes reasoning and evidence to go beyond what is obvious in the presented text. It examines a text's meaning, quality, and significance through various approaches, such as lenses, as I've provided below, such as historical context, psychological dimension, and including gender roles. So, how does literary criticism apply to criminal investigation? So, I am a criminal justice major, and I plan on utilizing that to become a criminal investigator. And a big part of criminal investigation is victimology, which victimology is the study of victims of harm, nature of victimization, and victim offender relationships. So, victimology relates to the psychological dimension aspect of literary criticism, as that aspect of literary criticism goes over these psychological theories. So, psychological dimensions explore how literature reflects the human psyche in today's society, and it analyzes the conflicts and traumas of the characters in the text and repressed thoughts and memories. Victimology assesses risk factors and the process by which an individual becomes a victim. So there's many factors in how one becomes a victim. Um, and victimology investigates the emotional, physical, and financial harm of the victim, whether they have physical scarring, whether they suffer from PTSD, and things like that. So, victimology, much like psychological dimensions, it explores the human psyche and the psychological theories. It is the science behind studying conflicts and traumas of the victims of crime, how are they affected long term, and whether they suffer from PTSD or if they struggle with repressed memories. So, utilizing literary criticism in my career. With the area of criminal investigation that I intend to pursue is I would like to work in the investigation of human trafficking. I am from Dayton, Ohio, so it is a big human trafficking hub. It's where I-70 and I-75 meet and intersect and branch off into other highways. So I am no stranger to human trafficking. So these investigations include identifying victims and identifying those who are vulnerable, those who have significant behavioral changes and have a lack of control in their life and show signs of abuse. And in literary criticism, you can analyze texts and see, have the characters experience things like that? Are they having behavioral changes in the story? And victimology is a huge part of this work in human trafficking, which is why I made this the focus of how it connects to literary criticism, as law enforcement agencies use a victim-centered approach that prioritizes the protection and stabilization of victims while focusing on the prosecution of offenders. So, with human trafficking investigation, gender roles also play a part. Working with victims and offenders means that there are gender statistics. In 2022, most defendants that were guilty and charged with human trafficking, 91% of them were male. 75% of trafficking victims are female and 40% are minors. So it's not always adults that are being human trafficked. And you can see, gender roles and age differences in characters in literature. So the investigative work. In conducting investigations, human trafficking investigators, much like a literary critic, they gather evidence, they collaborate with others in different specialized fields. So you can have literary critics that specialize in, areas, whether it's historical context lenses, whether they specifically do gender studies. And so there's different departments and specialized fields within criminal investigation, and they utilize lenses to draw conclusions. And so, in conclusion, being a literary critic is essentially being a detective in the literature world. Both jobs are parallel in the collection of evidence and involvement of human psychology. And victims and detectives have a history of becoming authors and entering the world of literature to share their stories and build awareness on what has happened to them. And this is my works cited. So, thank you for listening to my presentation.